Welcome to Reframe Your Mindset for Success. With me today is Nick Bishop. How are you
Hi,
today?
Paul.
How are you doing?
I'm pretty good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, really good. And as it with it being the end of the week, Friday, it's always a good day.
Well, don't wish your life away, Paul. Don't wish your life away. Every day's a good day.
And what have you been up to this week, Nick?
I've been working on site with a client 2 days a week on sales training. They're a listed company on the alternative stock market, and it's very much around helping the sales team to get the best from their talents and skills, obviously, and finding probably other ways to ask questions to really start that conversation before you even think about selling. So that was 2 days this week.
Yeah,
As you perhaps know from our previous conversations we had a couple of weeks ago, I'm very involved in the athletic community too. So I've been coaching 3 nights this week, getting thoroughly wet and cold on every occasion. Um, Now I'm at home today, looking forward to the weekend and whatever that brings.
great stuff, great stuff. And yeah, obviously we were talking about, the athletics, but more so this British weather, trying to go out running in that. I do admire that. So well done. So as
Well,
you
the
know,
worst thing is, Paul, is I'm the coach holding a stopwatch. So the athletes get the better deal. They're running on the track. I'm stood there freezing cold holding a stopwatch with my teeth chattering, shouting out lap times as they go round.
well, I do admire you then, because I can go out and play a bit of football in the cold, but I've got to be running around. So as you know, Nick, the start of the podcast, it's about your story in as many words as you want to tell it. So it's over to you to start.
Yeah, sure. Well, I left school. I'm showing my age here, Paul. I left school in 77, 78, and I didn't go to university. I'd never wanted to go to university. I was one of only three people in my year that didn't go to uni. I went straight to working for an insurance company and went to night school to do insurance exams
Yeah,
and progressed through the ranks for an insurance company. So I ended up there probably managing about 150 people in a team. We actually then had a relationship with a company who you will know well called NWS Bank, Northwest Securities.
yeah,
And I was made redundant, but because we had a relationship, AA Insurance and Financial Services and NWS Bank, a conversation was held on high. I came to meet Ken Robb, and the rest is history there. So I had then had 10 years working for what was NWS Bank, Capital Bank, Halifax, and finally Bank of Scotland before they took out my level of management and I was again made redundant. Now, the strange thing is then, Paul, I'd stopped enjoying the job a little bit because I found that I was a pretty well paid auditor of people as opposed to someone trying to make a difference and excite people's minds about their potential and to really develop them. So when I left in 2005, that's when I decided to become self-employed and set up Nick Bishop Solutions, delivering workshops for business.
yeah.
And apart from the latter few years where I've now, through my own background, evolved into coaching athletes as well, that's pretty much where I am today, Paul.
Superb. Yeah. And obviously we met back in those Capital Bank days, which, were very, very different to these times. But to go from, Nick Bishop Solutions, your own consultancy, into the athletics world, is that always been has it been a passion? Something that you've done previously because
Well,
you've always been a runner?
I always have been an athlete. So I ran my first marathon in 1981, my
Yeah,
last marathon in 2001. I've always been a runner. Even at the bank, I used to go out at lunchtime running.
that's right.
But
Yeah.
what happened? I stopped running at 50 when I had some knee injuries, and that's when I started coaching, did my coaching badges with England Athletics, etc. But when it really changed in a big way was 5 or 6 years ago. I wrote 7 articles for British Athletics on sports psychology.
Yeah.
These then got picked up by some athletes in Kenya, in a small village in the Rift Valleys of Kenya called Iten, Iten. It's called the Home of Champions, where all the greats of distance running train and live together.
Yeah.
I got invited out there, befriended some athletes, and now today I have 24 athletes in Kenya that I coach and manage. And the
Wow.
thing is, Paul,
Yeah.
when you think about business, you learn your skills on the technical side in business, but you use those to develop your people. All I'm really doing with athletes is using my technical knowledge as a qualified coach with England Athletics and my own knowledge of mindset to get improved performance from my athletes. So really, it's very little difference.
Yeah, it's quite transferable skills, aren't they? You know, you think, a lot of the lessons that we learn and a lot of the skills that we learn in business are very much transferable from one industry to the next. You know, sometimes you think, well, you were in sales, but now you're working in athletics. But as you just said, a lot of that's transferable, isn't it?
Absolutely. But you could argue, Paul, when we work with people, we are only selling our ideas and trying to sell them our own thoughts to improve their own performance, really. So it's transferable skills and getting them to get buy-in from ourselves, which all is all about how we manage their experiences, how we try to make them believe they can be the best version of themselves and things like that. I love that expression, I always say to people, never stop trying to be your best version of you. One of my favorite expressions that.
Yeah, no, it's a nice phrase, isn't it? Because you look at it and you go, I have this bit around playing from a 10. So you wake up in the morning and you go, being the best version of you is playing from a 10. You know, if you're 10 out of 10, that's the best that you can possibly be. And if you're aiming for that, you're always going to have a good day. I
Absolutely, absolutely.
so on the basis of, you're training the athletes now, what's next with them then? Are they gearing up for
Well,
the
well,
next?
it's a very humbling experience because when I met the seven athletes that I went out to meet 3, 4 years ago, I've been back 5, 6 times since. When I went out there, I realized that these were kind of journeyman athletes with very little money, just wanting to become athletes using secondhand kit and things like that.
Yeah,
So at the end of the week, when I left, Alicia, that's Alicia with an E, it's a guy, one of my wingmen now. I said, Alicia, I need to try to help you because you've got a passion to be great at athletics, but you've got limited opportunity. What can we do? And Alicia said to me, Coach, everything is possible. So that was his parting gambit. So
yeah,
that's when I set up a separate website, which is Nick Bishop Coaching, which is athletics related. And to this day, I've been sending small amounts of money every month to help them, etc. And it's very humbling because it's called Developing Talent, Improving Lives, where I'm taking people from the most humble of backgrounds to potentially the brink of stardom. Now, 4 of my athletes have now got scholarships to university, 3 in America, 1 in Australia. Um, Dennis in Alabama, when I first met him, didn't have a bed. I bought him his first bed. We're
yeah.
now targeting next year a 12 minutes 40-second 5K. Only 5 people in history have run 12:40 or quicker.
Wow.
Dennis, his namesake, another Dennis, who's in Texas now. I brought him over for a race in the UK, which he won in 62 minutes,
Yeah.
half marathon. When he went back, I have met his uncle. He brought him up from the age of 3 when he was orphaned. He gave the money all to his uncle, and together they grew a field of maize the size of 4 football pitches, feeding an entire village. It's a community, Paul. They live their lives as a community and they just dare to believe, honestly. And we are trying to show everyone that if you believe enough, if you have the support from the right people, if they believe in you, you can achieve remarkable things.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, by the way, Nick. And I like the way that it was framed there when he went back to one of them saying everything is possible. That's their
Oh,
mindset.
very much so. I mean,
Believing.
and
Yeah,
it made me realize, Paul, now, I've had life-changing moments myself in terms of my own mindset. But the interesting thing about Kenyan athletes in the UK, because I have worked with consultancies where we have worked with Everton, with Bolton, with the South African cricket team, etc., etc. And often in the UK, it's all about trying to get people to understand how to develop a positive mindset. In Kenya, the danger sometimes is trying to get them to rein it in a little bit so they don't get too much disappointment rather than set unrealistic goals. They
yeah.
just believe over there, Paul, because they're brought up in a can-do community. That's the difference.
Right, okay. And it's amazing, isn't it? Because I look at it and go, that difference in mindset, people who think they can't do, or they're told that they can't do, compared to those that provide that support, the energy and the thinking around a can-do mindset, or a will, you want to go further again, the intention of a will-do mindset is that I will do it. You think,
Absolutely. I mean, one of the consultancies well, I'm a non-exec director, solution focused. We have something called the tier cycle. Thinking affects our emotions, our attitudes, and the results we get. Whereas sometimes, hierarchically, results are expected, attitudes not considered, emotions barely thought of, let alone how we think. So it's kind of,
Yeah.
it goes back to people who sometimes you can imagine the old line manager, and I'm using the word manager rather than leader, coming out of the office, coming up to someone saying, can you just do this? Oh, Paul, don't worry, actually, you're not so good at that. I'm going to ask someone else. I've seen that said to people, and what's the
Yeah.
message?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it is that micromanagement that has that impact, real negative impact on people as well. And you think, when we look at the difference between management and leadership and being able to coach people, and as you say, develop that can-do mindset, the difference that it can make.
It's when you see people get it, isn't it? And it's like a light bulb moment then, Paul, isn't it? Some people, when you know they've just got it, and they fly, don't they? They just fly, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's quite ironic that you're saying that actually you've got to rein them in rather than it being the other way
Well,
around.
a great example, the place that I stay, they have a physio there because quite a lot of athletes use the same base that I go to. And I knew he's a marathon runner, and I asked him, how did he get on in the last race? And he said, "Oh, coach," he said, "not so good, 2:17 marathon," which is pretty decent, by the way.
Yeah,
But he then said to me, "But next year I'm going to break the world record." Okay, fair enough. Yeah, whatever. It's one of those, isn't it?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
another example of that, I was working with the FA once with a guy called Trevor Massey, who was a Premiership linesman.
yeah,
And that day, a guy walked into the office or the room we were just using, a meeting room, and he just that day newly qualified as a League Two referee.
yeah,
Proud as punch, and so he should be. So Trevor said to him, "What's your goals? What's your aims? What's your ambitions?" And he said to referee the World Cup final. Well, it's fantastic to have that dream in 15, 18 years' time, but we need those little steps on the way to celebrate success, to know you're on the right route. That is a dream, not a goal, because the
yeah,
goals
yeah.
you can tick off every week, month, day, whatever it may be, until you achieve the next rung. That was a bit too far off because without the steps of the journey, you can't pat yourself on the back and celebrate success.
Yeah, it's that I do like, somebody having a vision for the future where they've got to
Oh
appreciate
yeah,
it's a vision. You have got to coordinate a path towards the goals that you want. And if that's a 15-year vision, then what are we going to do in the next 5 years before we get to the next 10,
absolutely,
before we get to the next
absolutely.
15? So Nick, as you know, this podcast is very much, and it's what we're talking about right now is mindset. So thinking about you, why is mindset so important to you?
Well, I've got to learn this over the last 20 years for a number of reasons. One being when you become self-employed, I think it does change your mindset. The other reason, in actual fact, is probably how I started on this journey, as opposed to just being delivering masterclasses for business in leadership, in customer service, or whatever, but more about mindset was it's an interesting story. On my second day of self-employment, I went to an Institute of Directors networking meeting in Preston.
Yeah.
And there's a guest speaker called Michael Finnegan from Advanced Performance.
Oh
And
yeah.
he spoke, and I thought, wow, that was powerful. So after the meeting, we're all chatting away, and he came over to me and I said, "How long have you been working for yourself?" I said, "2 days, etc."
Ah,
And he said, "Well, where's your office?" I said, "In my back bedroom." I can proudly say now, Paul, I'm sat in my own office at home now, by the way. Things have moved on.
yeah.
But I was really impressed with what he was talking about. So I was invited to their offices in Preston. To cut a long story short, for 12 years, I became an associate with Advanced Performance, who had gone out to America for a year just to work with some of the best, business psychologists in the world to develop their own framework around mental attitude. So that kind of kick-started me of realizing how important this was that I hadn't really well, I wouldn't say bought into it or understood it properly, but once I started working for them and learning from them and then delivering the programs, it made me realize that the mindset is so important because we have our conscious mind, our subconscious mind, our conscious mind taking everything in real time that's going on around us. Our
Yeah.
subconscious is really just a filing cabinet holding all those thoughts. So anytime in microseconds when we need to make a decision on how to behave, we investigate the filing cabinet, feeds back to our conscious mind, and that's how we behave. So
Yeah.
we always behave to stereotype, of course. And it's only then that I really started to understand you can change your mindset. I can change my filing cabinet. I can change my thinking so that when it investigates my subconscious or my filing cabinets, I want the new and improved behaviors to come out, but only from practice and maybe using affirmations or visualization, even.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. Absolutely. It makes complete sense to me. So on the basis of it being, because the way that you've explained that is that, you're self-employed and obviously you've done this work for advanced performance and really realized that, you can change your mindset. So if you were to describe your mindset then, how would you describe it?
I think having worked for myself for 20 years, having delivered programs around the area we're talking about, Paul, having learned from Advance, delivered workshops with them, I think my mindset is very positive. And I like to think now that I can surround myself with positive people because we all know there's the doom mongers, etc., who try to bring you down, etc. Terrorists, things like that, would try to bring you down.
Yeah.
So I think I've got a very positive mindset. And I think that has come about because of my knowledge and understanding of it now. But also, they say, Paul, don't they, that affirmations, if you use affirmations twice a day for a month, the behavior becomes new and ingrained in you.
Yeah.
Well, I like to think that from my learning and delivering programs like this, my mindset has now become one that I'm a very, very positive person that believes and believes in a way that understands if something goes wrong, it's okay. I'll just change it. Don't worry. And I think self-employment helps with that too, Paul, by the way.
Yeah.
You get used to not having a regular paycheck. And I think it makes you a better human being is the wrong word. A human being that understands the ups and downs of life better and can cope with them in a better way, perhaps.
Yeah, no, no, I totally understand. Yeah, the roller coaster of being self-employed and being in business, there's that you've got to be able to cope with what are sometimes financial pressures that other people don't experience. And as much as you've got financial pressure, sometimes, you've got financial joy too.
Well, I mean, of
Ups
course,
and
Paul.
downs and the swings and roundabouts with it.
Oh, Paul, I would never change it. I would never change it for the world. I mean, I'm now of an age where there's no going back anyway.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the fun I mean, Paul, I worked in Botswana for 2 years, a week a month for 2 years, delivering a project through the business school there. Worked with Gary Kirsten, South African cricket team. I could tell you a lot more, but the things I'd never dreamt of doing anything like that. It's just opened my eyes and made me realize that you can do remarkable things. You can do amazing things. And the more you do it, the more it becomes habit forming anyway.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, totally agree with that. It's winning habits, isn't it?
Very much so, very much so. And that's so going back to that question, I think my mindset is now very positive. I know the people around me that I like to have around me, and I'm just excited by all the things that I do. Sometimes my biggest weakness probably is taking on board too many things and then having to prioritize juggling what's most important. But I'd rather be a busy fool. Well, a busy fool's the wrong expression. I'd rather be busy than a busy fool achieving nothing.
With you. Yeah. So on the basis of where you've got to with your mindset now, and I was talking about I use playing from a 10 when I wake up in the morning. It's kind of one of the analogies or metaphors that I use. Well, what tools, tips, or techniques do you use to keep your mindset in the right place?
Okay, I mean, I probably, if I'm delivering a workshop, probably it's slightly different. It still excites me when I get out of bed, knowing I've got a group of people to excite and improve, etc., etc.
Yeah,
But I think when I'm kind of working for myself, I've got my office at home, it is slightly different. But I do like to try to set myself certain targets I'm going to achieve. And I always let's break it down into 5 days now, Paul, and let's be old-fashioned. So we work now very much 24/7, 7 days a week, but let's call it 9 to 5, 5 days a week, old school.
yeah,
Most people, when they leave the office or the place of work on a Friday, beat themselves up about the small things they didn't quite get right. And then, of course, it's a downward spiral. I do like to reflect on what I've achieved. And at the end of the week, look back and say, Nick, you've had a pretty good week, son. Well done. 95% of the time, you're pretty damn good. 5% not quite there, but I can live with that, move on, etc., etc.
yeah.
So I have small goals over the course of each day because they're the little things to excite my mind about what I'm doing, exciting myself about what I've got to do, I should say as well. And at the end of the week, reflecting and being proud of what I've done because most people, until they understand the power of positive self-thinking, will beat themselves up when they've probably been pretty damn good for most of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much that's a deficit mindset where we do, at times focus on the deficit rather than, as you're saying, you've achieved 95%, which is, there's a lot of good that's happened in the week there. You go
Oh,
from,
absolutely. We forget that. We forget how good we are. And it's this is not being arrogant. This is not being big-headed. It's just being proud of what you've achieved. That's the phrase. Proud of your achievements, proud of what you've done, and know it's going to carry on next week if you approach it in the right way. Not complacent, but just confident in you're going to have a great week again.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So on the journey, I know you talked about advanced performance, but who's helped you or what's helped you, develop your mindset over the years? Has there been, a person? Has there been a book? Has there been, maybe
I think it was very, I think it was very much working in advanced performance too. They've downsized quite a lot now. They used to have about 20, 30 people when I was there at the time. It's a much smaller business now. But I think all of the people there I learned a lot from. But I've been very lucky in my life. I've played sport at a reasonable level across a variety of sports. And I think sport, I have to be careful how I word this. I wouldn't say I feel sorry for. I think people who've never played sport in their lives have missed out, I think is a better expression. Because I think sport is one of the biggest sort of ways of learning about life. I remember I used to play club cricket and I've always been a runner ever since I was 5 or 6. All my life being a runner. That's been a constant.
yeah,
But I remember playing cricket in the late 70s. I was playing for Cheadle, Cheshire in the Cheshire County Cricket League. But we're in the semi-final of the Cheshire Cup playing crew. Crucial part in the game. I'm 17. I'm on the boundary. 500 people watching. I'm stood in front of the beer tent and I drop a vital catch. Tears in the dressing room. You know what I mean? Afterwards.
yeah,
But the older pros put an arm around me and said, "Son, don't worry. We've all done it." And I think
yeah,
sport is a
yeah,
great learning for life, isn't it? It's without
totally,
sounding too cliched, you're only as good as your last game. You've got to start again if it's football for the next 90 minutes, etc., etc. And
yeah.
you always come a cropper, but it's how you bounce back, Paul, isn't it?
Do you know what? Totally, because I look at it and go, some of the best players. I mean, I've played football all my life and played up front, and I love scoring goals. That's always been my thing. And you go, but you have games where you just don't play as well, or the ball doesn't go in, and you go, but that persistence of I can't wait to the next game
Yeah.
because it's an opportunity to score a goal the next game.
That's what
And
they
you go,
say,
that's
isn't it?
the
You often hear it on the radio. Here they are. It's 5 games they've gone undefeated, but they're looking to do this, that, and the other. You have to reset every game. You can't assume, etc., etc. Or
that's it.
5 games since they won. Here's a chance to reset, and all that kind of stuff that goes on, isn't it? They all talk about resetting in football in professional terms.
Yeah, do the thing I think sport gives you as well, for me, and I don't know if it's been for you with the running and playing cricket at times, is that, either going into the zone or going into this place where you're not thinking about anything else whatsoever. And I think
Oh,
that freedom for your mind is really, really healthy.
they say, don't they, that running is a great relaxation, but being in the zone. So when I send out my athletes in Kenya, I'm online with sending out training programs and things like that. But the ones I coach in the UK and the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, I send out the training session. Although I'll be with them, I
Yeah,
send out the training session first thing in the morning so they know exactly what it's going to be. You're on a track, maybe it's 10 by 1 kilometer with 2 minutes rest in between or whatever. And I always tell them, start thinking about the training session at 9 o'clock in the morning, not 7 o'clock at night when you turn up. Start to think about how you're going to run, what it will feel like, what you will look like, what success is going to be. I
yeah,
want them to start thinking about the session at 9 o'clock, not 7 o'clock when they turn up. And,
yeah,
and just to
yeah,
finish off the analogy with athletics you mentioned, Paul,
yeah,
you watch people at the start of the 100 meters,
yeah,
particularly the 100, because if you're a man, you've got about 9.8 seconds to make a difference. If you're a woman, probably about 10.35.
yeah.
They are just thinking of nothing else apart from visualizing going through that line and being the best in the world. They are just zoned. They're totally in a zone, aren't they, Paul, when you see them at
Yeah,
the stop?
absolutely. I mean, you do see that. You can see they're so focused, and as you're saying, is that visualization, isn't it? It's so critical and so important to some of these top athletes and sports people across the world. It's what they do. They understand the power of visualization.
But of course, what they'll also do, they'll also have their own little rituals as well. It happens in football in the dressing room. Some
Yeah,
players will always put their left sock on before the right. Or on the track, you'll see them, they'll jump up and down 6 times, slap their thighs 6 times. They'll have little rituals they go through, and it's almost them reminding them, right, it's race time, head in gear, I'm good to go. It's that moment when they kind of they get the mindset in such a way that they're good to go. Off you go, son.
Yeah, totally. And you know what? It makes me laugh you mentioning that because I have my own when it comes to football. I still do it. You know, you
Do
go,
you?
isn't it amazing that after all these years, I'm still doing those certain rituals, even though, at the end of the day, I play for fun now. You know, it's nothing as serious as what it was when I was a bit younger. But it stays with you. It does stay with you for life.
Yeah, yeah, but you still want to bag a hat trick, don't you?
Totally.
You know,
Yeah,
because even at the level we might be at, Paul, when you go out there playing five-a-side, whatever it is, etc., you still want to be the best you can be and show your mates you can still do a bit. So it's no different. If you just rook up with a big grin and you're Charlie Chaplin, you're not going to be too good, I'm afraid.
that's it. And quite rightly, as you mentioned before, these things that we do through sports, the rituals, the visualization, these techniques and these methods can be applied to anything, can't they, at the end of the day? It doesn't have
Well,
to be
very much so. I
sports.
mean, you'll probably feel the same, Paul, because I love public speaking, etc. But and I've done a lot of it as you have. But the day I turn up to give a speech, and the day I'm not slightly nervous, major problem, because
Yeah,
you need nerves and excitement to produce adrenaline, and we need adrenaline to perform, don't we? So,
yeah,
you know,
definitely.
the day you start to get a bit sort of slap happy is the day you're set for failure.
Totally agree. Totally agree. So on the basis of, you've obviously had quite a career, and it's been varied from obviously working for organizations and working for yourself and, being over in Kenya and your different travels that you've had as well. So, we said it was around advanced performance before, and that's what's, really got you in the frame of mind for mindset. But if we were to look at, have you had any funny stories along the way? Is there anything that maybe gone wrong that's
It's
ended up?
interesting you talk about funny stories. One is a bit surreal, and one is perhaps a learning as well. One of the In my formative days of public speaking, I was asked to speak at Macmillan's staff conference at Keele University. Now, Keele is only about 50-minute drive away from me, and but I'd spoken to the organizer. They told me, and it's quite a big event. There's probably about 300 people there. So in my formative years of public speaking, it's quite a big gig. And they told me how the room is going to be laid out. It's going to be almost wedding style tables of 10, 12, so 20 tables of 12 people, round tables in a large conference suite, etc. And on that basis, I'd almost prepared my talk to have some practical elements to it as well. Now, I'm not suggesting I should have gone to recce it because you take the word of the organizer for it, but when I turned up, it was banked theatre style seating, totally different to what I was expecting. And
Yeah,
I was the first speaker on at 9:30 that morning. So I arrived at maybe 8:30 and I had 1 hour to think, right, my speech would not be dramatically different, but the way I wanted to present it had to be different because I could no longer do some of the things I wanted to do
yeah.
in teams based on how it was laid out. So that was thinking on my feet very quickly, etc. And I'm not saying it was a learning because although maybe it's a learning that have a couple of tricks up your sleeve in case something goes wrong, maybe almost. But
It's
the other one, I love this story, by the way. Sorry,
yeah.
Paul.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say it's that agility, isn't it? I think when you turn up and you think you're doing something one way, and all of a sudden you've got to try and do it another way. It's that mental agility, isn't it? You've got to really flex your approach quite quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not easy.
And the other one, being a Liverpool fan, you'll have to decide how you like this one as well. But this is surreal, this Paul.
Yeah.
I'm a Stockport County fan from my sin. We play in League One. Some people suggest I've got no interest in football, obviously. But you've got to say Sir Alex Ferguson is one of the people that
Oh, superb.
people would love to speak with, etc. I mean, he delivers programs at Harvard, I think, or lectures or gives
Yeah,
talks. It's on mindset himself, etc.
yeah.
Now, ironically, I've just been for my haircut this morning, and I go to a small corner shop about half a mile's walk from where I live, and it's a proper backstreet place. When I say it's £13, you can tell it's the old-fashioned men's barber shop. Now, it's always been rumoured that Sir Alex Ferguson goes there for his haircut, and I'd never asked the question. But my wife had sent me out. this was probably 6, 9 months ago, that morning to buy perhaps a loaf of bread from the co-op, which was almost next door to the barber's.
Yeah.
And next door on the other side from the barber's is a coffee shop. And then I walked past, would you believe it? Sir Alex Ferguson is sat
Yeah.
in the coffee shop
Yeah.
on his own. It's about 8 in the morning. So I walked past and I thought, I have to go in. This is too
You've
good.
got
I have to
to.
go
Yeah.
in.
You've got
So
to.
I
You've
walked
got to.
in. I walked in, and the only person sat there is Sir Alex reading probably the Racing Times or whatever it was. So I didn't say anything, but he looked up at me and said, "Good morning, sir." And I said, "Oh, good morning, Sir Alex." Anyway, I sat at another table. To cut a long story short, Paul, no one else came in for 45 minutes. So we had a one-to-one for
Oh,
45
wow.
minutes. I know
Wow.
me and Sir Alex for 45 minutes were talking like we are here.
Oh,
Um,
that's
but
incredible. And look,
because it
you
was
know,
8 in the morning,
yeah.
no one else came in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
And I thought I will keep football off agenda. This would not be fair.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yet, if he wanted to talk football, that's fine as well. But it was just unbelievable, the conversation, what we spoke about, etc. So
Yeah.
after 45 minutes, he looked at his watch and said, "Oh, the missus will kill me." Sadly, she's passed on, his wife, obviously, now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he went to pay and left. So I finished my coffee and my cake and a bit of lunch, breakfast,
Oh,
sorry.
what a morning.
So I went to leave and they said, "Sir, it's okay, Sir Alex has paid for yours." So he paid for me
Oh,
breakfast as well. I
wow.
mean, Paul, a 45-minute one-to-one with no one else in the coffee shop. It was just unbelievable.
I look at it and you go, it doesn't matter what team you support to get, the
Oh
fella,
no, dead right.
what he achieved at United and, how he's gone about that and to be able to tap into his mindset and to be
Oh
able to
yeah.
have to spend 45 minutes to speak to him as well. And he paid for your breakfast, though. Wow.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, etc. Absolutely amazing, isn't it? It really was a dream opportunity. But as you rightly say, Paul, you're talking to an absolute legend, and a chance to just to listen to his story and etc. is just you couldn't buy it. And United fans are incredibly jealous of me, as you can probably imagine.
Not off, not off. Do you know, these things just occasionally do happen, don't they, where you bump into somebody. And it was quite funny, talking about the famous people. So Clive Woodward, I brought him
Oh
into
yes, yes,
the organisation. He was giving a talk and we got to walk around and he never talked about rugby, he talked about football. And
yeah.
it was quite amusing that I've got this rugby icon. And he was talking about his passion for Chelsea FC.
Well, I
Um,
think he's done a bit of work at Chelsea. The only reason
yeah,
I've followed up a little bit on him more recently is Solution Focus, where I'm a non-exec director. I do their weekly blog every week. We've been doing it for 6 years now. I write the blog every week. And what we sometimes do, without giving too many secrets away to our prospects, is that if we're talking to a company about a certain program, I will sometimes do the blog around that topic because when it gets sent out to all our clients and prospects, it maybe gives them a nudge.
yeah,
And we're talking to one client about delivering a workshop on Woodward's model, etc. And so, obviously, I wrote the article about his leadership style and what he believes, but I was reading his bio as well, and he's done a lot of work in business,
yeah,
in
that's brilliant.
sport, not just in rugby, obviously, about his model, Woodward's model.
Yeah. Yeah, but a very inspirational guy as well, But to just spend time with these people and actually, you go, they're just at the end of the day, Sir Alex Ferguson, he's an icon, but the human beings, aren't they? The normal people who've achieved greatness.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned Fergie and leadership. Here's me calling him Fergie, like my mate, not Sir Alex anymore. Um, I mean, the great thing about him, he's just so humble. And what you realise, though, Paul, people talk about the hairdryer treatment and Fergie.
Yeah,
You don't have the success he had with being a one-trick pony. It's a bit like
yeah,
we have to be careful we're not talking too much sport here. But you look back at Brian Clough. People know when to put their arm on the shoulder, when to read the right act, when to just quietly have that little word to reassure them, and a combination of all those things. Because otherwise, you've got to know it. It's all about emotional intelligence to get the best from anyone. You've got to treat them all
Totally.
as individuals, understanding what it is that makes them tick.
And us talking about this, it's an interesting factor because when we talk about mindset, having that level of self-awareness and emotional intelligence, it's always going to serve you well because you can have the best mindset in the world, but if you really lack emotional intelligence, it's going to hold you back in life. So you go,
Well,
the
well,
two together make a powerful combination.
I agree, Paul, and I actually think I hope I'm not going to offend anyone or generalize, but I found that sometimes some of the most intelligent people are the least emotionally intelligent. You
Yeah,
know, they're
yeah,
technically
brilliant. Yeah,
technically
yeah,
incredibly bright, but the emotional side not quite as good. And that's why I used to be friends with, I shouldn't say used to be, I still am actually, with a guy who used to be the chief exec of the Guardian group of newspapers. And this sounds a little bit like Richard Branson and Virgin when I tell the story, because I always asked Ian Ashcroft his name. I said, Ian, how did you get to that position? And he said, well, I realized I wasn't good at everything, but I knew that people that were. So surrounding myself with the right people that did know everything would make me the person I wanted to be in the chief exec. So it's having the right people around you, Paul, with the right skill
yeah,
set that
yeah,
together as a collective makes you stronger than the sum of the parts almost.
yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Well, Nick, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the podcast. If you were to give one last piece of advice to the listeners, what would it be?
I think it would be never wait for the right moment because the right moment may never come. And I've been guilty of that sometimes. You know, you can plan too much. Sometimes just get your hands dirty and start doing something, and normally something will happen. There's also 7 billion people on this earth. So never be afraid to ask for help because there will be someone that's been there before. And people are always happy to give advice and guidance. People like to help people. And finally, I think failure is a learning opportunity. So don't be afraid to fail. The fact that you failed showed you tried, and you'll be stronger and better and more rounded for it, Paul.
Brilliant advice, Nick. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. That has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. So many thanks.
My pleasure, Paul. Me too.